City leaders in Washington, D.C. are celebrating a key victory in their showdown with the Trump administration. Yesterday, Attorney General Pam Bondi pulled back her order, stripping the D.C. police chief of her authority to command the city's police department. But that victory comes as Donald Trump continues to exert his authority over the nation's capital, with hundreds of National Guard troops still fanned out across the city. As the Associated Press writes, the police takeover is the latest move by Trump to test the limits of his legal authorities to carry out his agenda, relying on obscure statutes and a supposed state of emergency to bolster his tough on crime message and his plans to speed up the mass deportation of people in the United States illegally. Trump has threatened to follow suit in other democratically run cities, and those mayors have taken notice.
Trump is proposing and threatening to militarize cities, which is, unconstitutional. It's no coincidence, though, that these are cities that have large populations of black and brown people. These are cities, all of these cities, where the crime rates are going down.
But when you look at what the president's saying, the fact that my city and all the others called out by the president on Sunday, led by black mayors, are all making historic progress on crime. But they're the ones getting called out, and it tells you everything that you need to know.
He is provoking on sending federal troops, the National Guard, into cities to plunder them, though those entities do not have policing power. So they can't even do the very thing that he claims that he wants them to do.
Joining us now, former New York Congressman Jamal Bowman and Washington, D.C.'s Shadow Senator Paul Strauss. Gentlemen, welcome to the weekend. So, Senator, we played a lot of sound there. Just whatever the president's doing here. But let's listen to him, what he had to say on Thursday, and his message to Democrats on why they should join in on his policing surge efforts.
I think they'd be much better off saying, we want to help President Trump with the crime because it's an epidemic, it's a tragic situation, it's the worst it's ever been, and we want to help President Trump with the crime, as opposed to, he's a dictator, he's a dictator. People are so happy to see our military going into D.C. and getting these thugs out.
Okay, I want to say something. I've lived in Washington, D.C. 18 years. What he just said there is a lie, one. Two, I'm not happy that the military or that the National Guard is on our city streets. Please, Mr. Senator, tell me about this epidemic of crime that apparently is happening in the city where I live. And Eugene.
Well, violent crime is actually down. I mean, there's been a spike in some crimes, bribery of public officials with luxury airplanes. That's way up. But other than that, crime is actually decreasing. Now, any violent crime is one too many. Nobody wants a single carjacking or, God forbid, a homicide. But the best solutions are community-based solutions. D.C. has a unique system where the federal government controls the judiciary, the federal government controls the prosecutors, and to the extent that there are problems, that's where they've been, not with our local police force that's been doing a good job of making arrests, of making people feel safe, and being partners with a community that wants to have them protect and serve us, not intimidate, not harass us.
Because one of the most important things in policing, when you talk to whether they're police or just people who follow, pay attention to policing a lot and write articles and things about it, is that they should feel like a part of the community, right? What we're seeing, when I go on 14th Street nearby where I live, what I see is it looks like, oh, we're under siege, right? That's what it looks like and feels like to folks. And what's so interesting about this is D.C., and this is according to WTOP, is still waiting for Congress to restore $1 billion with the B in funding during their crime crackdown. So a lot of that money would probably go to dealing with some of this crime. Congressman, talk to us about the dichotomy of that, because we had Muriel Bowser on last Sunday before the president made his announcement. She talked about the things that they want from the federal government, the money that they need, and this $1 billion would go a long way to help it.
Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress are directly responsible for withholding $1 billion that D.C. has a right to. With that $1 billion, you can hire more law enforcement. You can also support families with housing security and food security and education and job programs. The other thing is this. You know, another thing that brings down violent crime is something called violence interrupters. Yeah. And President Biden had an office, an anti-gun violence office that Donald Trump got rid of when he came in. Greg Jackson, who's a friend of mine, was a deputy director of that office. Right here in New York City, you have people like Erica Ford and Kay Bain who are doing exceptional violence interruption work. In Yonkers, you have Jonathan Alvarez, 914 United. So if the president is really serious about dealing with violent crime, like now, in certain areas, again, one murder, one violent crime, too many.
Yeah.
So let's use a scalpel. Let's be strategic. Let's go into those communities with people who are from those communities to help with the issue of violent crime. But the president's not serious. He wants to be a dictator. He likes seeing military personnel on the streets of D.C. because it makes him feel powerful because he's actually a small person.
Well, on that point, Senator, let's play what Mayor Bowser had to say on the show last week to amplify the point of where she would like to have some help from the federal government.
There's more to do. We need judges. You heard Jeanine Pirro says she needs prosecutors, and we need police in D.C. I'd like to hire 500 great people over the course of the next several years to get our numbers where they need to be. And D.C. is hiring. So if you're interested in policing in the best city in the world, please reach out to us.
And so, Senator, I would love to have you talk more about what the city needs, but also we just need to remind people Washington, D.C. is an urban area. It ain't Mayberry. Stuff happens.
Stuff happens in Mayberry, too.
Right, stuff happens in Mayberry.
I watched that show.
Stuff happens.
A lot of stuff happened in Mayberry.
But, I mean, we're talking about cities, and the president talks about big cities as if they are just giant small towns. That's just not possible. So the withholding of the $1 billion, the mayor saying, like, look, we want to hire 500 great new people for the police force, and yet the president, Mr. National Guard president, is standing in the way.
He also talks about these cities. He's frozen in the 80s when the cities were infested with crimes. When New York City, where he was there was crime everywhere. That was a different time. That's different than it is
taking
now.
out ads calling for the death penalty for people
what we need
is
statehood so that we have autonomy over our criminal justice system. We have a U.S. attorney, Ed Martin, before Trump's U.S. attorney, who fired 60 career prosecutors for essentially prosecuting the January 6th insurgents. And so we have these gaps at the federal level. That's where the problems are. Every community, one of the fundamental principles of democracy is that you get to elect your own prosecutor, that these people are accountable to the communities that they serve. And it's not just taxation without representation. It's now no representation and an occupation, and it's making the situation worse. We are alienating the community from the police that are supposed to serve them. They're targeting our most vulnerable citizens, our immigrants, homeless people, people who we want to feel safe in cooperating with the police, coming forward, reporting crimes, testifying at trials if they need to be. This is, at best, a performative huge distraction. But at worst, when you see these videos of cops coming up to people in their homes, encouraging them to dissuade them from participating in lawful behavior because Donald Trump doesn't want them to be smoking a cigarette on their porch. It's just, it's heartbreaking.
Well, we've seen members of law enforcement tackle people in the street for recording them. Like there's video out of that, right? And this is so in alignment with Stephen Miller Project 2025 and the criminalization of poor, vulnerable Black and brown people, while a convicted convicted of crime
felon
is in the White House, and while Congress protects people like Matt Gaetz while he's in the House.
Congressman, talk a little bit about the fact that D.C. advocates went to places where the unhoused are typically and told them, please leave, go somewhere else because we are going to see the federal law enforcement come and raid this. This is their words. And then we saw a bulldozer knocking over those areas. Talk about that criminalization of being poor without adding to any resources for these folks.
It's criminalization. It's inhumanity. it's to the point made earlier. You know, I worked in D.C. for many years. I walk all over D.C. in all neighborhoods. I ride a bike all over D.C. in all neighborhoods. Those who are unhoused, those who are homeless, are some of the most vulnerable people in our country. And so criminalizing them and putting them in jail gets them off the street, sure, but it doesn't help the situation, not just in terms of housing, but in terms of the health care that's needed. So we just need a much more humane approach, and an approach that aligns with our values as a liberal democracy. And we're so far away from that, and we have the resources to do it. We don't have the will and we don't have the care for certain people in our country.